When I graduated college in 1991, I literally had no idea what I was going to do next. I had just completed my degree in biology, and now I found myself entering into this new world of corporate arena where I was trying to figure out and navigate what this world was going to look like for me. But it also took on a much deeper meaning, because remember, this is 1991, around 1991, 92. We're still about 20 years removed from the end of the modern civil rights movement. And therefore, I'm now moving into this vantage point where I'm the first generation that's moving into an area that is completely desegregated, where I'm moving into a corporate environment, where I'm not only trying to identify where I'm going to place myself, but who can I turn to give me guidance as to how to navigate as a person of color. It's important to remember that in 1991 and 92, I was, as a member of Generation X, heading into the corporate arena. I was 21, 22 years old. And I was now moving into this new space of doing something that my parents' generation didn't. I had people within my mother's generation who were professionals, but they were used to, and when they were my age, they moved into this environment. When they moved into it, it was still segregated, or they were in close proximity to when segregation was still in place. For me, I am now about a good 20 years removed from that time period, and so I'm now moving in at a time where the people who I turn to for guidance can't really give me a whole lot of guidance other than how to maintain myself professionally in terms of how do I handle professional interactions in a space where now I am in a desegregated environment. This was all new to me, and for the instance, in a lot of instances, it was all new to them as well. As such, I often found myself in these spaces where I didn't necessarily have any mentors or guides immediately who could tell me what I needed to do as I moved into these particular spaces. So for me, I had to figure out how to maneuver where in most of these instances, I did not necessarily have someone who I could actively engage who could give me guidance accordingly. Now, I came from a very unique standpoint. I had spent 4 years at a predominantly white institution. I was used to maneuvering in spaces where I was the only one. I was a biology major, and when I graduated, I was the only black male who graduated out of my class with a degree in biology. I was the only black person who graduated in my ROTC class. In most of my classes that I went to, I was either the only one or one of a few persons of color in each of my classes. So I had been accustomed to moving in this environment. Most of my classmates were very friendly, very engaging, and I didn't have any problems whatsoever. But the reality is that I had no idea as to what this was going to be like in the professional setting. So when I finally got out to the professional world, unlike being in a situation where I had other people who were similarly situated to me in terms of college kids, I now was going to be moving into a work environment where I was going to deal with people who not only were my age, but older. Therefore, I didn't know what that world was actually going to look like or how to best prepare for myself in terms of engaging into that world. But there were two things that I learned fairly quickly as the moment I got into these spaces once I started my first job in 1992 working for the state of Florida. First thing I did is I started scanning for other professionals that looked like me. It was not that I was trying to find people to isolate myself or segregate myself, as the term is often used incorrectly, I might add, when it comes to moving with people in different spaces. What I was looking for were people who I could be in solidarity with, who I believe were similarly situated as I was. I was looking for people who knew what it was like to be in spaces where it was either just them or only a few of them. In my workplace, there was a headquarters office, and then there were 5 field offices. So we would travel regularly to each one of those field offices, and in each one, I was often looking for people who looked like me. And I was successful because in each one of those offices, I was able to identify people who looked like me, who could communicate to me their own experiences and let me know kind of examples as how they engaged in various interpersonal relationships with people when they found themselves in spaces where they were the only one. The other thing I found was the importance of code switching, which was something I didn't realize was a thing, but it was something I had kind of done naturally when I was in college. And what I mean by this is that I looked and I tried to mirror the communication patterns of the people who were around me. I did not use slang as much. I did not use words that were synonymous with certain environments that I was used to moving in. I typically listened to the patterns, the engagement mechanisms of the people who did not look like me, and I mirrored them in a way to ascertain what their intentions were, but also to provide a level of comfort for them to be able to engage me in a way that I believed would be productive for me as well. This was the world that I had to experience. And for me, these were the tools that I utilized in order to move forward. But it was really important that I had those places I could go to in order to see how to maneuver accordingly. This is where the media and the arts played a huge role. It was also during this time that we started to see proliferation of different representations, whether it be Living Single in around 1993 or Boomerang around 1995. Movies like this started to depict Black people in professional environments. And these were important because not only did it represent something that I hadn't seen in my normal day-to-day practice, it created a sense of normalcy that moving in these spaces as professionals was something that was the norm. And knowing that I was looking at people who not only looked like me, but were also in my same age category, made me feel more comforted in knowing that I was now moving in a space where it was not uncommon to see someone who looked like me, and this was becoming a common practice. Oftentimes, people don't think about the underlying ramifications of what it means to go through significant generational change. As I've said before in various other videos and podcasts, we have to remember that we literally flipped the switch overnight. We went from a segregated society to a desegregated society, and there was no blueprint for what a desegregated society had looked like after basically being a segregated society for over 300 years. Our generation, as Generation X and Black generation, had to carry that torch. Not only did we have to figure out skills for how to move in this environment, but we also had to not do that in addition to ensuring that we had safe spaces that we could maneuver, finding safe practices in terms of how we maneuver, and look for other places that could remind us and reaffirm to us that it was okay to be where we were. Take a moment to reflect on your personal journey, and if you like, I would encourage you to take a check out of my book, Black Generation X in the Middle, talking about how Generation X moved accordingly as being a transitional group. You can check the book out in one of my bookstores. And as always, if you want a giveaway title code where you can get the book for free, I only have a limited number. Just make sure you put a comment down below and I'll make sure I get one to you.